Part 22. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 211. Because the curtains are always drawn, the room always looks dim. At this time, when Zeppelin smashed a large pile of documents on the table, Warspite, who was wearing glasses and reading a newspaper, was immediately startled. Zeppelin said, "Dean, these documents are handed over to you, and all my tasks are completed." Taking off his glasses, Jean Xie, who was sitting behind his desk, glanced at the documents in front of him, showed an ugly expression, and said, "Oh, Zeppelin, do you really want to leave? Just because of that little guy? I've said this a long time ago, and it's not for that little guy. Although Sugu is a good student, he has seen many good students over the years. Of course, he left because of Akagi and Bismarck. But the academy can't survive without you. No matter who is missing, the sun will rise every day. The same goes for this academy, no matter who is missing, it doesn't matter whether it's you or me. Do not." Although the forever 17-year-old Dean Warspite was still objecting, Zeppelin had already turned around and left. But things are just as she said, this college can operate perfectly without anyone left. Moreover, there was one thing she knew very well. Warspite can become the head of the academy, even though it may not be very powerful in terms of strength due to the ship's equipment, but in other aspects, Chuangzhou can develop into such a big city. The academy is still the core of the entire city, and the other party is making decisions behind the scenes. I have done a lot of work, and in fact my working ability is max. Originally, he should have gone to the garrison of his student Sugu years ago, but he stayed in the college due to the handover of work. Thinking about it, there was no way around it. However, she finally finished what needed to be done today. When she came out of the dean's office, she still felt a little dazed. She had already packed her things, and now she was carrying her suitcase through the tree-lined corridor inside the college. At this time, the shadows of the trees were dancing, and she was stepping on the fallen leaves, and she thought of many things. "I haven't seen Akagi for a long time, I miss her a little, and I don't know what she is doing now. Did you have a good meal? Are there any sorties? A ship girl as powerful as her would be overqualified if she was only doing simple sortie missions. York City is his own student. Although he is not too smart, his enthusiasm for learning is still satisfying. Instructor Zeppelin, every time they meet, they always shout loudly. There is also Bismarck. Although they have not known each other for a long time, I still remember that handsome over-the-shoulder throw when she threw Nelson down. Prince Eugen didn't know what else to do, or whether he was helping Bismarck properly. But compared to these, the most important thing is how Sugu treats Akagi and Bismarck. Although the other person looks good at the moment, I don't know what will happen next. Men always don't know how to cherish women who are too easy to get. And speaking of it, although Sugu is a good newcomer, he has only been an intern for a short period of time. Although Akagi and Bismarck are around, they must not be very good at management and may encounter some difficulties. Difficulties are easy to solve, just wait until you get over them. There is only one problem that worries people. It is a problem that newcomers can easily make. If they make it, it will easily bring trouble to the garrison. The so-called problem is that once they have resources, newcomers always like to build. It's just that construction often consumes a lot of resources. If it is built and the resources are reduced, it will be difficult to recover when a ship girl in the garrison is injured. The newly built ship girls are very weak and require a lot of time to train. Building a ship girl is never easy. When new people build, it is easy for a new person to get into trouble. This is a problem that every new person cannot overcome. Therefore, it is often necessary to have a mentor to prevent newcomers from committing suicide. At this time, thinking about various problems in his mind, Zeppelin carried his backpack and suitcase and walked through the tree-lined corridor. Then he raised his head, frowned and shouted loudly, "Lindy, are you ready?" The college teacher named Lindy has been arguing a few days ago that she should be the instructor. Don't you know her purpose? But I just want to go on a trip and travel at public expense. After all, he occupied the other person's position, so he also found a mission for the other person to go out, and then the two made an appointment to go out together. Many days ago, Zeppelin watched the other party buy a skull bag for his ship girl, a little destroyer. Soon after, a head stuck out from the window of the staff dormitory and shouted, "Wait, wait, wait. Hurry up. You are really troublesome, otherwise you can just leave by yourself. You are just traveling anyway. Oh, no, the boat tickets have been bought, just wait." Zeppelin shook his head. "Troublesome woman, if your admiral is that troublesome, definitely don't do it." Soon after, wait for the other person to come out, and then go out together. After explaining everything clearly in the academy, I thought I could finally meet Akagi and Bismarck again. Soon after, we boarded the ship and took a long passenger ship ride. After parting ways with Lindy at the pier, Zeppelin did not continue taking the boat. After all, unlike Lindy, she was a ship girl and could sail on the sea by herself. She is familiar with the garrison forts in various places and has been here several times. At this time, there is no need to lead the way or ask for directions. The sailing feet step on the sea, leaving two white waves on the sea. It didn't take long for Chibolin to find his destination, the garrison of his student Sugu. Standing on the edge of the pier, I straightened my seaweed-like silvery hair. I looked around and thought that the decoration here was very good. Of course, it was not that she had never seen a better decorated townhouse, but it was pretty good for a newbie to have such a townhouse without money. But she didn't pay too much attention to these things. After all, these things were just trivial matters for a tutelary house. The strength of the ship girl was an important criterion for measuring the tutelary house. At this time, I was walking along the steps of the governor's mansion. Speaking of which, I came directly without any prior notice, and I didn't know what the reaction would be. Later, as soon as he entered the town hall, Zeppelin saw a pink-haired little girl squatting next to the gate. Wearing a green hoodie, a bow tie, and round leather shoes, she was wrapped up tightly. She looked like a very pampered little girl. At this time, the round, baby-fat arms stretched out, as if they were holding branches to poke ants. Where did Sugu get such a little girl? His initial ship was York City. Thinking like this, he thought that his guess was indeed correct. Sugu also made the mistake that all new admirals make. He used some resources to build. Okay, now build a destroyer. Zeppelin shook his head. Without the instructor, newcomers are prone to making mistakes. It seems that he is still late. But why didn't Akagi and Bismarck stop this behavior? It's not okay for the admiral to pamper the ship's wife too much, and it's not okay for the ship's wife to be too pampered to the admiral. However, it was built as soon as it was built, but why were the destroyers not allowed to train or learn? Even if it's a destroyer, it needs to be drilled. You can't just leave it alone just because it's a child and let her play around. Destroyers also need to learn and fight. No matter how young they are still ship girls after all. Zeppelin looked at the little girl at this time and thought to himself, it seems that if you say a few words to the other party, even if someone thinks you are harsh, then you will be harsh, then you will be the one to play dirty. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 212. Although he is serious to everyone, Zeppelin is not the kind of person who likes to point fingers when they meet. Zeppelin has always believed that whether they are ordinary people or ship girls, they will respect their seniors, but not strangers who know nothing about them. For her, the normal situation is to first show her abilities and convince others, and then to convince others with a strong attitude. This is the best way. She still remembers meeting those thorn-headed ship girls before, thinking that she was out there going through life and death, fighting countless deep-sea ship girls, but she was asked to study in the academy, and she felt dissatisfied. For those instructors who have never been on the battlefield, quite a few ship girls will only remain polite verbally, but in their hearts they are mostly disdainful. In this case, the only thing to do is to convince her. I remember the most typical situation was that when I met a ship girl named Phi Long, I was dismissive of her at first. When he proposed the exercise, the other party agreed, and then he controlled the carrier-based aircraft to easily occupy the air, and the rest was not continued. From then on, he initially maintained his dignity. From now on, Phi Long would respectfully call his instructor when he saw him. If you want people to recognize you, you must first show your abilities. This is probably her principle as an instructor. Seeing the little girl at this time, Zeppelin didn't think about going up and asking her why she didn't study or train. She straightened her clothes a little, then straightened her long silver hair and put on a smile. Zeppelin said, "Hello." The little girl raised her head and looked at it for a moment. It was an unknown adult. Then I wanted to continue poking at the ant nest, but my admiral told me a long time ago that I must be polite. This is something I have mentioned many times. So she smiled sweetly and said, "Hello, Auntie." Cluck, 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 the hands clenched into fists were straining. Just like the warspite who is always 17 years old, no matter how long a ship girl has lived, she still doesn't want to be told her age. This is an insistence shared by both humans and ship girls. Although I have always wanted to develop in a mature and charming way, I definitely don't want to be called auntie, even if the person talking is a little girl. Gritting his teeth and persisting a little, Zeppelin certainly wouldn't fight a little girl. "I am Zeppelin, you can also call me Catherine, I am 24 years old. My name is Xiaozai, I'm 8 years old then." What does it mean to be 8 years old? It's so perfunctory. Zeppelin said, "Is the admiral of this garrison called Sugu?" Sugu, Xiaozai remembers his admiral's name. He remembers this name very clearly. But why did the other party want to investigate this place and ask questions here and there? Remembering the story his admiral had told before, he looked at the smiling woman with suspicion. But despite her doubts, she answered honestly, "Yes." "Then you are her ship girl?" "Yes." After saying this, Xiaozai put down the branch in his hand and was talking to others while doing other things. That was also impolite behavior. "Where is your admiral?" Staring at the other person's eyes carefully, without seeing any malice for a long time, Xiaozai said, "I'm out, going to a very far place." Of course, Xiaozai knew some things. His admiral was taken far away by sister counterattack, and even the fireflies were gone, so he poked ants out of boredom. On the other side, Zeppelin frowned and thought, why did he leave as soon as he arrived at the garrison? He shouldn't have done such a thing. As a new admiral, there are many things that you should do now, such as visiting the admirals around you. As an admiral, it is not enough to fight alone. However, there must be something to do when traveling to a distant place. Zeppelin is not too harsh on such things. At this time, Xiaozai raised his head. "What are you doing here?" Zeppelin nodded, thinking, what should I do? "I will be your instructor." "But I should have come here from the beginning, but now that I have come, well, it's no wonder that others don't recognize me, and I am a little unqualified." Having already arrived here, Zeppelin was not in a hurry to find Akagi or Bismarck. At this time, he was chatting with the destroyer named Xiaozai in front of him with great interest. Zeppelin said, "I should be your instructor." "I don't need a mentor, I have a teacher." Xiaozai didn't quite understand the meaning of a mentor. Of course she had a teacher, and that was her sister Lexington. At this time Zeppelin chuckled, "Your teacher? Your teacher is probably not as good as me." But after thinking about it, maybe Akagi or Bismarck were teachers. It's just that they may be better than me in fighting, but they are not as good as me in teaching students. I am the instructor of your garrison, and I will also be your teacher in the future. Then Zeppelin thought about it and decided to reveal his identity and show his strong side first. I am the USS Zeppelin. I teach at the Naval Academy in Chuangziu. I have been an instructor for many years. I have countless students under my command. Your York City sister is my student, and your Akaga sister is me. Colleague, your Bismarck sister is my friend. Although she is an instructor on an aircraft carrier, she is very familiar with many things, such as how to dodge better, how to anti-submarine, and how to air clear better. Anti-submarine, lightning strikes, air defense, even these things I am familiar with. I can teach you. Xiao Zai was a little confused. Why should he teach himself? Anti-submarine, lightning strikes, and air defense, aren't those what destroyers are supposed to do? He is a battleship. What's the point of talking to himself, or to Fletcher and the others? This adult is incomprehensible. Xiao Zai said, I am not a destroyer. Zeppelin said, actually, I have taught many expulsions. Hearing Xiao Zai's words suddenly, the second half of the sentence was completely stuck. Aren't you a destroyer? What is it if it's not a destroyer? Zeppelin said, aren't you a destroyer? No. Frowning, could it be that his student is really so European? Zeppelin hesitated and said, you are the battleship Veneto? This is wrong. No. Zai thought for a while and said honestly, I am the battleship Tirpitz. That's not right. Even if it is the battleship Tirpitz, there is no reason why the Tirpitz is so small. Seeing the ant in front of him very confused, Zai opened his suit with a loud bang. As an instructor at the academy, Zeppelin certainly recognized the Tirpitz ship's uniform. The little girl in front of him was clearly the Tirpitz. Although teaching battleships was not his strong point, in order not to lose face, Zeppelin still said, actually, I can teach even battleships. No need to teach me, I'm very strong. Little guy, you are so naive, you don't know how far apart you are from me. Although he thought this way, he would not care about the little girl. Zeppelin said, if it is on the battlefield, even if you are Tirpitz, I can easily defeat you. Do you want to see my carrier-based aircraft? Hearing this, Xiao Zai was a little angry, and he had worked hard. She squinted her eyes, her expression became fierce, and she expanded her aura, the aura of a powerful battleship. Xiao Zai is not a really honest child. She said, if I shoot you, you may die, auntie. This little guy is strong, very strong. By the way, her equipment is 4 triple 16-inch guns, with a theoretical firepower of 23 points per gun. For a moment, even Zeppelin felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. At the same time, Zai showed her own momentum. Seeing the dull expression on the other side, she then put away her ship's uniform and her smile became sweet. Now Zeppelin thought he was seeing a hallucination. What is this? It's fake. It looks like a destroyer, but it's a battleship. It should have just woken up not long ago. Why is it so strong? This garrison was a bit strange, and she suddenly felt uneasy about her next trip. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 213. The little girl named Xiao Zai is unwilling to leave with her after all. She still wants to continue poking at her ant nest, but she has pointed out the direction as to where the office of the town guard is. As I walked along, I felt a little confused. Why did such a small battleship Tirpitz appear this year? Besides the Veneto, there were other small battleships. But generally speaking, Veneto only looks young on the outside, but in fact he is completely mature in his heart. Veneto is a pseudo-loli, but the little Tirpitz he met, Judging from his many years of experience, he has the mindset of a little girl. A real baby battleship. Zeppelin thought for a moment and wondered what significance such a lowly battleship would have to the world. But no matter what, it is still worthy of cheers to have such a powerful ship girl in the garrison where I am going to stay. What's more, with Tirpitz is Bismarck's sister. I must be very happy to come to Bismarck these days. That would be the best. The big trees on the roadside had begun to sprout new buds. Zeppelin was walking on the road inside the townhouse, thinking about various questions in his mind, and then he saw three little girls walking towards him. The one at the head has silver slightly curly hair and wears a headband. Afterwards, the little girl with golden twin tails was running around whizzing. On the contrary, the pink-haired little girl walking at the back was very well behaved. A beautiful person, a lovely person. Just by looking at Zeppelin, you can tell that she is a ship girl. Where did so many ship girls come from in this Toot-Larry mansion? Zeppelin thought for a while. She must be a ship girl from another garrison who came to play. Admirals communicate with each other, and ship girls often form joint fleets, so it is very common for ship girls from different garrison towns to become friends with each other. There were not many garrison houses nearby. Chibolin thought about it at this time. Could it be Tianhao's ship girl? My student named Tianhao has been an admiral for a long time, and I heard that no new ship girl has been built. I haven't seen him for a long time, and I sent him an invitation some time ago saying that I was getting married, and the wedding ship was the Kaohsiung. He has only had one Kaohsiung for so many years, and he should indeed build a few more ships, otherwise it would be too miserable. Zeppelin said, "Hello." Then she was greeted with three hellos. Having just experienced the impact of Xiaozai, Zeppelin now felt a little mentally weak. She said, "I am Zeppelin." But before she finished speaking, the little girl with blonde hair and twin tails who came towards her was already very excited. She raised her hand and said loudly, "I am the destroyer Thatcher." Sigsby. Sullivan. Zeppelin said, "Which warship are you from? Is your Admiral Tianhao?" "No, no, we are the ship girls here." Saying this, the three little girls walked away. They had something to do. The Admiral here? Obviously, I just heard the little girl named Xiaozai say that the Admiral here is Sugu, his student. How could he, a new Admiral, have so many ship girls? Or should I say that there are two Admirals here? So if it was just one person, where would he come from so many resources to build? After all, even for a wealthy college, one student only provides an opportunity to build. If there are more, even the academy cannot afford it. Could it be that Sugu is a hidden rich admiral? With such doubts, Zeppelin continued to walk forward. Then she saw a pink-haired girl sitting under a big tree. She was sitting there reading a book. Seeing this, Zeppelin nodded and studied seriously. This is what a ship girl needs to do. She walked over and said hello. However, the pink-haired girl over there glanced at her and responded weakly, without even saying hello. Zeppelin, who was reading so seriously that he had some occupational problems, said, "Reading is very good." Suddenly the girl seemed a little excited and said, "You want to see it too?" Zeppelin nodded. Then the girl raised the book and Zeppelin took a look. The book was full of unsightly pictures. Hopeless. Zeppelin then walked away, and when he was approaching the building, he saw a red-haired girl walking over carrying two large bags of things. The girl looks like a high school student and has a beautiful face. She is definitely not an ordinary person, that is, she is a ship girl. Now Zeppelin no longer wants to think about why there are so many ship girls in this garrison. Zeppelin said, "Hello." The girl responded at this time, "Hello, who are you?" The girl's smile was like an angel's. Zeppelin felt that she had finally met a normal person. She said, "Well, I should be the instructor here. I came here now because I have something to do." I used to be Sichuan Jiu's instructor on the aircraft carrier Chi Berlin. I know you are welcome. Then the girl said again, I am the light cruiser San Juan. You are here to see the admiral. I'm sorry, he is not at the town hall because of something. Then let me lead the way for you. Let's go to the office first. The secretaryship of the town government is there. Compared to the little girl, and even compared to most people in the town hall, San Juan is one of the few more reliable people. She actually knew about Chi Bolin because she had heard about it from Sugu. At this time, the two were walking side by side, and Zeppelin said, Are you also the ship girl here? Yes. Built. No, salvage. Salvage, lucky guy, destiny man. Zeppelin said, First I met a person with pink hair. She was, reading a book. That's Tirpitz, the battleship Tirpitz. I met a little girl, she was also Tirpitz. They are all Tirpitz. The older one we call Bazai, and the younger one we call Zyazai. Zeppelin remained silent. The two Tirpitz were divided into the north house and the small house. It was a bit too much. However, she is a person who has been on the battlefield for a long time. After a long time to calm her heart, she said, Where is the secretaryship? Is your secretaryship Akagi or Bismarck? No. York City, then. After all, York City is also the initial ship, so it shouldn't be too bad as a secretaryship. No, it's not York City. She wants to be a secretaryship, but she's still a little unqualified. The secretaryship is the admiral's wedding ship, it's the Lexington, which means she's the most powerful as a secretaryship. Wedding ship? Lexington. The legendary perfect wife Lexington? Thinking like this, Zeppelin heard the whistling sound and the clicking sound of the propeller. She raised her head and saw the golden carrier-based aircraft flying across the sky. At this time, San Juan said, Probably Lexington is teaching York City how to better control carrier-based aircraft. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 214. Zeppelin followed San Juan to the top floor, and then saw York City with short blonde hair, looking at the sky with a look of longing. Next to York City, a woman with long flaxen hair, wearing a full ship uniform, controlled a carrier-based aircraft to hover in the sky. Golden carrier-based aircraft streaked across the sky. Those aircraft were exactly the carrier-based aircraft she had seen during the exercises at York City and Ark Royal. They were legendary hero aircraft. At that time, I specifically asked York City afterward where those planes were borrowed. She said it was her sister's carrier-based aircraft. It's just you, a Yorktown class number 1 ship, where does your sister come from? Then there were no more questions. Now that I think about it, it's probably Lexington in front of me. Then the two people on the other side seemed to notice the side. Zeppelin saw Lexington lift the flight deck in his hand. The carrier-based aircraft that had been circling at high speed stopped steadily on the flight deck and the ship's equipment was put away. San Juan introduced from the side, Lexington, our secretary ship, this is the Zeppelin, our instructor. York City over there also noticed this, and when he saw Zeppelin, he waved and shouted, Instructor Zeppelin, you are finally here. It is impossible for everyone to stand on the rooftop and talk, and then go to the office together. Lexington said, San Juan, make tea. Steaming tea was served. I heard the Admiral say before that there was an instructor who took good care of him when he was in the academy. Akaga said she had a very good colleague when she was in the academy. Bismarck. Her gentle temperament, even in just a short conversation, can't help but make people feel good about her. The Admiral was away from the town hall due to some matters. During this period, I have been managing the town hall. Instructor Zeppelin didn't say anything in advance when he came, so we didn't make preparations. It was really a poor reception. Akagi is living a good life here. When I chatted with her some time ago, She even said she missed you. Why hasn't she come over yet? The ensuing conversation and reception were all wonderful. At this time, Zeppelin was holding tea, thinking that this was something Akagi could never do, and even he couldn't do it to this extent. With such a powerful secretaryship, what else should I do? I was originally thinking that I could always make some suggestions on how to manage the tutelage, but now I can't say anything at all. After speaking, he looked at Lexington, who was smiling, and after thinking for a while, Zeppelin asked a question that he had always wondered about. Those carrier-based aircraft. Although I saw those carrier-based aircraft at first, I didn't understand them at all, and York City didn't know much about them either. So since the real owner is here, of course I want to ask about them. La-7, Kozhedub aircraft, and P-39, Pokrishkin aircraft, are actually 13-point anti-aircraft, slightly better than Sea-Fang. Don't sound so ordinary, Sea-Venomous Fang is not a popular product either. I talked to Lexington about some things, arranged the room, and was not in a hurry about the remaining matters at this time. Soon after, San Juan led Zeppelin to find Akagi sitting under the shade of a tree holding tea. Wearing a bright red and yellow Miko costume, her long black hair was tied with a ribbon and draped straight behind her back. Unlike Lexington's gentleness, Akagi's temperament tends to be demure, like a lady coming out of an ancient painting. Seeing Zeppelin at this time, Akagi didn't have much excitement on his face, he just waved him over. Then San Juan left, and Zeppelin sat next to Akagi on a bench in the shadow of the magnolia tree. I haven't come here because of handover issues, but I finally came today. Well, coming here opened my eyes. I felt like I had really seen a ghost today. I saw a small pink figure at the door of the town guard mansion. Girl, it turned out to be the Tirpitz. Later I saw 3 destroyers and a large Tirpitz. Akagi said, "It's not surprising, this is just a very ordinary picture." Not surprising, isn't this surprising? If this garrison was a garrison belonging to a gray-haired old admiral, then it would not be unusual to see such a scene. But it would be strange if this is the garrison of a new admiral. He must be in chaos. Being next to his senior, his speech seemed much more casual. At this time, Chi Berlin said, "Sugu, is he a hidden rich man? He can buy a lot of resources by spending money casually." "No. Then is he the legendary European? Is he the kind of European seal that the students in the academy used to like to talk about? He is the kind of person who can pick up ship girls even if he just goes out and walks around." Akagi shook his head. It seemed that his admiral was not actually counted. Then where do so many ship girls come from? Akagi thought for a while and said, "There used to be a very powerful garrison, but it fell apart because of the admiral's departure. Now that he is back, all he needs to do is to get everyone back." "Get it back? A very powerful garrison? Why haven't I heard of it? Is it true that there are few things you haven't heard of?" Zeppelin nodded. This was not the case before. After all, ship girls often only appeared as ordinary people. Some people have conquered the ship girl, but he himself doesn't know it. Then, it wasn't until one day that the Gone Girl said it herself that she realized that the woman around her was the Gone Girl. Some people have many ship girls as soon as they become admirals. This has not happened before. Thinking like this at this time, this is her own opinion. Then Zeppelin said, "Then since you have such a powerful garrison, why don't you come out to save the world and destroy the deep-sea flagship?" "The deep-sea flagship is not so easy to deal with. It is entrenched in the depths of the sea. It is not a good idea to go deep alone. It may cause everyone to sink at any time. Moreover, we only follow the instructions of the admiral. What's more, Zeppelin is strong. Do we have to save the world? Zeppelin is not an innocent little girl, not a student still in the ivory tower. She knows very well how cruel the world is. This is the world, not a story. The rich will not help the poor casually. As the saying goes, capital comes to the world, from head to toe, with blood and filth flowing from every pore. The strong will not save the weak casually. It is a good thing that the strong do not keep the weak in captivity to supply themselves with blood. Capital, sweatshops, politics, populism, vote maggots, vote bribery, this world is extremely cruel. Because of this, the original admiral wanted to separate the admiral and the ship girl from the politics of this world at all costs. Although Akagi's statement was a bit cruel, Zeppelin still nodded. Then Zeppelin held his face and said, "Don't talk about those cruel things, I just suddenly felt that coming here to be the instructor here was a bit overestimating my abilities. I felt that it didn't make any difference whether I was here or not. I watched Lexington, she is really powerful. I saw Xiaozai, and I couldn't even deal with such a little girl." Akagi said, "You can also teach everyone to learn. Not everyone is so strong, it should be said that the polarization here is very serious. The strong ones are very strong, and the weak ones are weak." Zeppelin and Akagi were talking, and then he saw a blonde girl sitting on the steps by the roadside not far away. "By the way, who is that?" "She is the girl sitting on the steps with her face in her hands and looking at the one in the distance." "Is she also a ship girl?" "How about it?" "Saratoga, you are very poor at studying and really need your teaching." Saratoga's performance is indeed very poor, of course, that is cultural aspects other than combat, this is something everyone must admit. At this time, Akagi hadn't finished speaking, and Zeppelin said, "Really?" Akagi asked with some confusion, "What's going on?" Zeppelin laughed and said, "Find some presents." Saying this, Zeppelin stood up. Although he was a sexy and majestic instructor in front of many people, he liked to teach people with a pointer. But in front of her Akagi-senpai, she often behaves like a little girl. Not long after this, Zeppelin walked up to Saratoga and said, "Hello, let's get to know each other. I am the instructor of the aircraft carrier USS Zeppelin. From today on, I will be your instructor, and I can also teach you how to operate carrier-based aircraft. Although you are the USS Saratoga, you should be very powerful, but you are still just a ship. Installation parameters, how to actually operate the carrier-based aircraft. I have read an ancient article before, called Shangzhonyang." Saratoga, who was holding her face and thinking about when her brother-in-law would come back, heard Zeppelin's voice. Then she turned her head and looked up inexplicably at the man with long silver white hair who was talking to her. "Want to teach yourself how to operate a carrier-based aircraft?" The golden carrier-based aircraft roared past, swept across the sky, skillfully rotated, raised altitude, and dived. Actually, compared to the pioneer of aviation tactics, I still prefer everyone to call me Robin. My brother-in-law was unwilling to give me the most powerful carrier-based aircraft, the bombers were given to the raiders, and the most powerful fighter jets were given to my sister. He could only give me some middling carrier-based aircraft, shabby hero aircraft. The maximum number is only 85 carrier-based aircraft, which is still inferior to Kaga's 93 carrier-based aircraft. Only a speed of 33 knots. By the way, what did you just say you wanted to teach me? Soon after, Zeppelin's expression became dull, and she returned to Akagi's side without speaking. At this time, Akagi looked at his junior and said, "Why did the carrier-based aircraft show up? Did you tell her something?" "I said I am Zeppelin, an instructor on an aircraft carrier." Akagi looked at the blonde girl in the distance who had stood up and was looking back, and said, "I told you before, in the aircraft carrier I know, I am not actually a number. That is Saratoga. That's Lexington's sister, that's the, most powerful aircraft carrier I've ever seen." Zeppelin held his face with one hand and said with some distress, "I feel like I have arrived at a fake garrison. Looking for the lost ship girl." Author, Hai Rong Yan. Chapter 215. Ying held Sugu's arm and said while shaking it, "Admiral, Admiral, can you let Amethyst and I sleep when we get back to the town hall? You should ask her if she wants to sleep with you. Anyway, it's up to you. What about the black-backed jackal? Can she live with us too?" Casual. "And Javelin, if there are so many people, we will have to change to another room. The current room is a bit small. Firefly already has his own room, but it's a double room. The person in the same room with her is Xiaozai, but Xiaozai is a non-intuitive guy. From time to time, she will go to her cat sister to take a nap, and occasionally she will go to Lexington. But Firefly doesn't have that kind of shame. If one day Xiaozai goes to someone else's room to sleep, Firefly sleeps alone in the dormitory, so he is always a little lonely. After all, compared to the Fletcher family on the destroyer, many of them sleep together, and they are lively every day. It is impossible to say that Firefly is not envious. At this time, I finally found my former destroyer companion, but the original room seemed too small, so I had to grind it out in front of my admiral to make a big room anyway. Of course Sugu had no objection. He reached out and rubbed Firefly's head and said, "Whatever, you can do whatever you want." Having said that, Firefly clasped her hands behind her hands a little uneasily and said, "Then, Admiral, the story you originally told." Sugu looked at Firefly, thought for a while, and said, "Last time we talked about Gul'dan's assassination of the army at night." Afterwards, Sugu was tapping his legs here and there, while Sugu was imagining the plot and telling the story. At this time, the moonlight shone into the cabin from the window of the yacht, and the yacht rocked on the sea. Soon after, the yacht stopped. Counterattack walked out of the cab, walked to the deck and dropped the anchor into the water. Then he returned to the cabin, looked at the starry sky at night and closed the windows and curtains. Then she clapped her hands and said, "Okay, you are ready to sleep." After hearing the retort, although several little girls still looked at him expectantly, Sugu still said, "If you want to know what happened next time, let's listen to the breakdown next time. Go to bed, you all go to bed." In fact, after attending Xie Wenjin's banquet, he began to deal with the handover matters, and then handed over the original garrison. A garrison built like a castle, Sugu felt it was a pity when he handed it over. After all, such a garrison occupied an area of who knows how many square meters, and from his perspective, it was worth who knows how much. Although the land is actually infinitely close to the sea, if there is no garrison nearby, the people living there may be attacked by the deep-sea warships at any time and their lives are in danger, so such land is actually not worth much. The small island where the Tutelary mansion is located was originally the land of a small country, and it was also a ruined Tutelary mansion at first. When the Prince of Wales rebuilt the garrison there, he actually paid a lot for it. However, it was not their own garrison in the first place, and no one felt that it should belong to them since they built it there. Most of the things in the garrison have been left there. If a new admiral takes office there, he can use whatever he wants and it can be quickly used as a resting place. Before leaving, I told the admiral of the nearby garrison that if London or Lincian came over, let them go to the east. Everyone had already found the admiral there, but it was not clear when the message would be available. Unlike when I came here, I didn't take a passenger ship when I went back this time. After all, there was originally a yacht in the garrison, although the distance was relatively long. At this time, it was the third day after leaving the garrison. On the way back, I wasn't in too much of a hurry, I needed to be covered in stars and the moon. While traveling during the day, you still have to rest at night. If the weather is bad and there is a big storm, you will have to dock at a dock in a nearby city, and then everyone will go ashore and check into a hotel. For many people, the most difficult problem is the attack of the deep-sea ship girls, but for Sugu and his party, it is not something to worry about. After all, there are usually no strong deep seas near the coast, and everyone on the ship, well, still has enough fighting power. At this time, he rested at night, and when he got up the next day, counterattack had already sailed on the yacht. I was thinking about various issues along the way, such as the fact that my relationship with Lexington has reached that point now, although I still don't live together. If we count them as wedding ships, Bismarck, Saratoga, and Bazai are all included. I don't know what to do in the future. The relationship with the Prince of Wales has progressed to a very good point. In fact, when we do something, it is a matter of course. All in all, it is quite a difficult problem to deal with so many wedding ships for one person. Speaking of which, until now we have found the Prince of Wales, many things have been forced to stop, and there is no extra information. The only things we can look forward to now are Kaga, London, Linxian and York. It's just a pity that after being here for such a long time, I haven't been able to get better information about everyone who used to guard the mansion. However, I haven't done much since I got to the town hall, so it's probably time to take on the responsibilities as an admiral. It's the fourth day to drive the yacht home. Sugu said, "My garrison is not as good as yours." At that time, I counterattacked and said that your garrison was rebuilt from the ruins. I thought it was terrible, not that good. After all, mine is still good. It's a bit worse. If you are embarrassed to tell Lexington, if there is anything you want to do or want, just tell me. Let me tell you first, and just tell me what you want, otherwise I may not be able to pay attention to you all the time. It's a pity that it's winter now, it's actually spring. Even though there's sunshine, it's still a bit cold. How about trying surfing with a skateboard pulled by a yacht? Soon in the afternoon, Firefly found a world map in the cabin, although it was not very detailed. Firefly stayed by his side. Sugu pointed to a corner on the map and said, "This is Gishan. There are many sweet-scented Osmanthus trees. Well, let me look for it. Our current town hall should be here. Choose this place. The reason is, I have checked and asked, and the climate here is very good, and it is not too humid in spring. Summer, well, summer is probably still relatively hot, but it is surrounded by the sea, so there is no need to be afraid of the heat, and there is no such thing as Sichuanjiu. How far is it?" "Sichuanjiu is a big city." Sugu said, thinking about it. When he chose the tutelage, he was always looking for comfort and convenience. He was really a hedonist. Not long after, Sugu put away the map, and then said, "Speaking of which, I have never met a deep-sea ship girl." As he said this, he remembered that he had set up a flag. "Although I set up a flag, I didn't meet the deep-sea ship girl until the next day. But on the third day, we encountered the deep sea." That was the news from Javelin, who was responsible for escort and detection at this time. The enemy was a deep-sea heavy cruiser and a deep-sea destroyer. Then the yacht docked on the coast, and the Prince of Wales launched a counterattack. After a boring card game in the cabin, Amethyst's face was covered with notes saying "idiot," and then the Prince of Wales came back and knocked on the cabin door to signal that he was going to continue setting off. Sugu saw a small black dot in the distance through the cabin window. He countered, "That's the ship girl from the nearby garrison." She was frightened by the Prince of Wales's artillery fire. The Prince of Wales said, "Fight back, you talk too much." The yacht was sailing on the sea, bumping and bumping. After many days, Sugu finally saw the familiar scenery. At this time, he stood on the deck of the yacht and saw the increasingly clear outline of the townhouse. Then he walked into the cabin and greeted everyone to get ready. Soon after, the yacht stopped at the dock under the counter-attack operation. So far, the yacht has traveled halfway around the world. Sugu didn't see anyone in the governor's mansion on the dock. Then he stood next to the yacht and greeted everyone to get off the yacht. Firefly jumped off the ship from the deck, looked into the distance and said, "Who is that?" Sugu followed the sound of fireflies and looked towards the long staircase of the town hall. There was a person sitting there. It was a somewhat unfamiliar figure, sitting there with a melancholy look. He seemed to have discovered this place, then stood up and walked over. As the figure got closer and closer, Sugu realized that it was Zeppelin. I originally guessed that Zeppelin was about to come, and indeed my guess was correct, but why was the other party sitting outside the garrison? Zeppelin and Sugu were very familiar with each other. At this time, he looked at the few people who got off the yacht, his eyes stayed on the Prince of Wales's eye patch for a moment, and said, "Where have you been?" I said, "West, do you believe it?" Zeppelin looked at the counter-attack who was asking everyone to take their luggage off the yacht, and said hesitantly, "Are those behind you the ship girls?" "That's right, these are the ones I've known each other before, my ship girl." Then Sugu motioned to everyone, and went over one by one, and said, "Let me introduce, the battleship Prince of Wales, is also my wedding ship. The battle cruiser Repulse, the mate is in charge. The destroyer Queen." After introducing everyone's identities in this way, Sugu then asked, "Has Instructor Zeppelin been here for a while?" "Don't call me instructor." "How?" Zeppelin looked at the Prince of Wales and then at the counter-attack, and then recalled the first time he met Sugu when he was in the academy. "When I took York City to attend classes, I was called on, couldn't answer some questions, and then was criticized by myself. At that time, I still looked like an honest child. But until now, well." Zeppelin said, "I don't have you as a student, so don't call me instructor." Sugu touched his head, confused. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 216. The yacht was parked at the pier, and everyone was carrying suitcases. In fact, they brought more than this from the original townhouse, but the yacht couldn't run away when it was parked here. At this time, Sugu and Chi Bolin exchanged a few words. The other party looked a little embarrassed and received a sentence like, "You are not my student." It's just that there was no angry expression on Zeppelin's face at all. He probably looked more sorrowful than heartbroken. Anyway, Sugu felt a little baffled, so he didn't care. He could just ask Lexington or Akage when the time came. Then she walked into the governor's mansion and immediately saw the small house. Seeing the admiral who had been gone for a long time and missed him a lot, she immediately rushed towards him. Although Sister Miao is very important, the admiral is also very important. Sugu picked up Xiao Zai and said, "Are you playing here alone?" "Yeah." With that said, Xiao Zai looked over Sugu's shoulder and looked at the Prince of Wales walking behind. "Sister Prince." Although it was not too easy to deal with the German ship, the Prince of Wales also smiled when facing such a small house. In this way, a large group of people walked into the garrison, and then Sugu saw Lexington. "Put Xiaozai down, and then Xiaozai and Firefly get together." Lexington said, "The admiral has found everyone." Lexington smiled, looked at the Prince of Wales and said hello. Although she missed her admiral very much, she still remained reserved in front of others. "Let's take everyone to the spare room and put their things down first." The room prepared for the Prince of Wales was naturally a standard one. Then Firefly pulled the black-backed jackal and javelin and ran to his room, then shouted to find a new room, and then they ran like this in the corridor. Many rooms were actually decorated at the beginning. After Sugu left to find the Prince of Wales, Lexington prepared rooms for everyone. Soon after, standing in the room, Sugu said, "If you want anything, just tell me and stay here for now. Then I will ask for some things and add them in. For example, the cactus you put in the room before, and when the time comes, you can also buy some asparagus, orchids, succulents, etc. and put them in, and plant spider plants on the windowsill." Unfortunately, I didn't take the specimen of the reindeer head, but remember that I brought the bear skin over, so it can be spread on the ground. Sugu stood at the window and looked down. York City with short blonde hair was standing outside talking to Leipzig. Pointing, she didn't know the Prince of Wales and others at all, and it seemed that she was asking about Leipzig at this time. Sugu said, "That is York City, as I told you. She is actually very easy to get along with. And as long as you beat her up, she will call you sister after all. That is York City, the madman who recognizes his sister." City. At this time, the Prince of Wales was sitting beside the bed. The bed was simply made with a blue quilt and an orange quilt. The Prince of Wales said, "Where do you live?" I'll go out and go to the third room on the right side of the corridor." After walking out of the room, Sugu saw Saratoga peeping out. At this time, Saratoga also saw Sugu, immediately spread her hands and said, "Brother-in-law, where is the gift?" Sugu showed an expression of sudden realization, and then said, "I didn't buy it." Bizarrely, Saratoga was not disappointed at all. She showed a surprised expression and then said, "Oh, didn't you buy a gift? My brother-in-law is back. This is not the best gift for Gaga." Saratoga was snickering. Alas, Sugu felt that he was about to be captured by the girl. "I must have bought a gift. It's a hat with long feathers from some unknown bird. It's very beautiful." Standing in the corridor and talking to Saratoga for a few words, Sugu then said, "Where is your sister?" While he was taking the Prince of Wales to the room, Lexington went to arrange the queens and their rooms. Saratoga spread her hands and said, "I don't know." He had known for a long time that his sister-in-law was unreliable, and then he had to find her by himself. Later, while walking in the corridor, he saw Akagi sitting under a tree from the window at the end of the corridor. Sugu suddenly remembered that he needed to ask about Zeppelin. But Akagi, even though everyone was here, he just stood around and watched for a while, and then sat on the bench under the tree to drink tea. After going out of the building and finding Sheik Hung, Sugu said, "Sheik Hung, why do you always look so calm and calm? Is there anything wrong?" "There's nothing wrong. By the way, when did Zeppelin come over?" "She suddenly told me today that I was no longer her student, although I know she was joking." "What happened?" Akagi laughed. "She was hurt." "How?" "She came to Saratoga and wanted to teach Saratoga how to operate a carrier-based aircraft, and then, you know. That is indeed quite miserable. Saratoga, although the girl is unreliable, is definitely the #1 aircraft carrier in terms of combat." Thinking of Zeppelin's temperament, he recognized those who were stronger than himself. It would be fine if it was Akagi or Bismarck, but it wouldn't matter if it was Lexington. After all, they looked like mature women in appearance. But facing a girl like Saratoga who seems unreliable, it probably feels very uncomfortable. Although Zeppelin experienced much more than that. She saw Bismarck at the warehouse. She had no expression on the return of the Prince of Wales. In fact, Sugu also knew that although there was no conflict between the two of them, they both had similar personalities, so neither of them would say hello first. At this time, Bismarck and his sister were walking together. Sugu wanted to find Lexington, so he casually said hello to them. But then Sugu was stopped by Bizai. "Admiral, did you sleep with the Prince of Wales? As a good drawing artist, don't think that Bizai doesn't understand anything. She understands everything, she just doesn't want to say or do anything." "What the hell? Even if you want to ask something, you can't be so straightforward." Bismarck had her head lowered, her silver-gray bangs hanging down, covering her face, but her cat ear-like hair was always raised. Then she raised her head and said, "Admiral, you are back." Bizai said, "Admiral, what happened between you and the Prince of Wales? Don't even think about changing the subject. It seems that nothing happened with the Prince of Wales." "No, please be satisfied. But it looks like you two are very close." Bismarck said, "Bizai, don't make trouble." Sugu looked at Bismarck and thought to himself, he was already an admiral, and he would still be an admiral no matter if he thought about it or not. Bismarck is his wedding ship, no matter whether he thinks about it or not, he already is. From being afraid to do anything at first, to some time ago, it seemed easier to do something intimate with the Prince of Wales. Thinking of the photo I saw at the beginning, and of Bismarck's original big picture in the game, Bismarck may not have a strong heart, at least in some aspects. At this time, he thought for a moment, then walked to Bismarck's side, stretched out his hand and hugged him. "Miss you, Bismarck." Then he let go of his hand, turned to look at Bizai, and hugged Bizai. Compared to Bismarck, Bizai had much more flesh on his body. "I miss you too, Bizai." Sugu said this, but still felt a little uncomfortable, and then left with a blush. Bizai muttered, "Sentimental. When I found Lexing, I was in the office." The counterattack immediately assumed the responsibility of being a maid, which made us feel ashamed. I saw her originally standing by the corridor, then walked back and forth, then found a broom and started sweeping the floor. The floor was actually not dirty, and it seems like that temper can't be changed. It must be quite hard for the Admiral to travel all the way to find the Prince of Wales. Even though he has traveled so far, his clothes look very clean. This must be a credit to his counterattack. As he spoke, he helped Sugu adjust his collar, and said, "He doesn't look like an admiral at all. I've been here for so long, I must have stayed for many days. Is there any news or rumors?" "There is no news about Hood and reputation. Speaking of which, these days I have taken on the responsibility of the Admiral and arranged for York City to attack several times. You cannot let too many people attack at one time, otherwise the consumption will not be enough to support it. Also, your salary as the Admiral has been paid. With a large amount of money, there are corresponding monthly resources, and the resources are placed in the warehouse. As for the money, the town hall bought a lot of things, it doesn't matter." "Admiral." Lexington kept talking about various things. "How is the garrison? What have you been doing these days?" Sugu remained silent until Lexington finished speaking. Then he put his hand on his face and said, "I keep calling you Admiral, shouldn't I call you husband?" Lexington smiled slightly, then calmed down, and finally stretched out his hand, spread his fingers, and said, "I've learned sweet words. Then, husband, I want 5 times in the evening. 5 times, it will kill someone." After all, Lexington couldn't do it 5 times that night, not because Sugu couldn't do it, but because Xiaozhe, who was wearing pajamas, wanted to sleep with him. After sleeping on the bed with Xiaozhe, Sugu said, "The Lion King Simba super evolved Steel Garuru, and his opponent is the evil and cunning Lion Scar. Peng Peng is an African warthog. He is finally about to meet his fate. He bites an apple and sits on the plate, although everyone eats it. This is the balance of this world, and every life everyone has their own destiny. It will turn into nutrients to nourish the earth, and more life will grow on the earth." Sugu was telling a story, but Xiaozai had no intention of listening to the story at this time. Xiaozai said, "Admiral, you have been gone for so long, and I miss you. Didn't you say before that you would never leave me? I know you have something to do, but can you take Xiaozai with you?" Xiaozai, who was wearing pajamas, huddled under the quilt, but Sugu saw the other person's expectant look. With Xiaozai's character, even though he said the sensational words deliberately, he still felt that he couldn't bear it. At this time, he said, "I will definitely take Xiaozai with me next time." After receiving his admiral's promise, Xiaozai hugged the pillow, then lay on his side on the pillow, looked at Sugu with his big eyes, and said, "I started to see Sister Lexington. What's wrong with her coming here? Because you are here, nothing will happen. Sister Lexington, do you want to sleep with us? Admiral, don't you want to sleep alone?" Otherwise, I will call Sister Meow over and the three of us will sleep together. Sugu hugged Xiao Zai and put his chin on Xiao Zai's head. Holding this little soft body is a completely different feeling than holding Lexington or the Prince of Wales. There is no nostalgia, just holding it makes me feel at ease. My little house, my angel. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 217. He brought the Prince of Wales and everyone back to the garrison, arranged everything, and the days went on like this. By now, everyone has settled down. The Prince of Wales now likes to stay in his room most of the time, occasionally looking out the window with a glass of red wine. For her, when she finds the Admiral and everyone has their own lives, that means the mission is completed. The black-backed jackal and Shiba Inu Thatcher are now a combination of breaking up the family. Amethyst was in the 2nd grade as usual, and when playing games like hide and seek, she was always the one pretending to be the ghost. The counterattack is now the responsibility of the maid. Except for the canteen, she is not allowed to participate. She can take care of other places, in fact, even now, she often goes in and out of the canteen. Of course, at that time, the only diners were Akagya. Although she is a maid, her power is actually only under Lexington. Of course, it is a relatively stupid behavior to discuss the power level in such a family like guard house. And now she has an apprentice, or follower, or assistant, and the person following her is called Fletcher. But even though he has been working in the maid cafe for many days, Fletcher is still struggling to do things behind the counterattack. Sweeping the floor, pruning the bushes, erasing the graffiti left by the destroyers on the walls, the schedule of things to be done every day is full. Standing in the corridor of the high-rise building, Sugu said, "Do you think you like fighting back because you like doing the job of a maid, or is it purely because of responsibility?" Lexington looked at the counterattack carrying Fletcher through with a small bucket, thought for a moment and said, "Maybe he likes this job. I don't understand. I actually like to work. My previous ambition was to eat and die." Common people had their ambitions in the past, but what about their current ambitions? Sugu sighed and said, "Let's find everyone first. Don't be mentally burdened. The town hall is already more lively now than before. I don't have any psychological burden anymore. There was no extra information for a while. Even if I wanted to find the others, the world was so big. I had thought before about whether to publish newspapers and post missing persons notices. But at that time Lexington said it was useless. He happened to have no money before, but now Sugu wants to give it a try. It was only when he was sitting in the office reading in the afternoon that Sugu suddenly thought of something. Even if he didn't order a newspaper, would his wife read it? After all, there is no very effective technology in this era. What's more, when it comes to advertising, which city and newspaper should we advertise in? How to negotiate? These are all difficult problems, and in the end I just couldn't think about them anymore. The cost is too great and the effect is too small. After all, Zeppelin's arrival during this period brought a lot of benefits. There is now a radio station in the town hall. Although I have considered installing a landline phone, it is completely unrealistic now and there is not much need in the town hall. When it comes to communicating with the outside world, the phone line can't be pulled out, and there's no way around it because of the rough roads. Because Zeppelin came over, another advantage was that the other party had a wide network of contacts. Zeppelin knew so many people that most admirals would call her Instructor Zeppelin when they saw her. For example, when Sugu approached Tien Hao, he was always a little reckless. During this period, Zeppelin played a big role in dealing with his own garrison and other garrison forts. Moreover, the Toot Larry House has to deal with nearby companies. After all, there must be an introducer for these things. It is impossible for you to just go up and tell people where you are from the Toot Larry House. However, With the well-known instructors from the academy like Zeppelin, the other party certainly trusted this side, and now the garrison can take on some tasks of guarding passenger ships and ships. Sitting in the office, Sugu said, I still don't want the destroyers to do escort work. Although she is a destroyer, she is also a ship girl. And didn't San Juan accompany them out? There is always a feeling that I am like a human trafficker, who abducts children to work for them, and then makes a fortune for themselves. Do you know? Some human traffickers specialize in abducting those children, then break their hands and feet, and ask them to go out to beg. And then the traffickers will take away the money from begging every day. Hearing Sugu's words, Lexington thought for a moment and frowned, and said, You feel so guilty when you say that, but it's so rare for them to have a mission, and we give them good food and drinks. We wear them, and we have to tell them stories to coax them to sleep at night. Besides, the bosses of those big companies don't do anything themselves. We are just agents or managers, doing coordination, communication, and management. Being you have been brought into the circle, and you are actually trying to make a difference seriously. What kind of human traffickers are we? There is no difference between us and human traffickers. Seeing Lexington suddenly enlightened, Sugu smiled. Lexington then said melancholy, But I was deceived by you anyway. How to say? You just built me and asked me to recognize you as an admiral and do things for you. Now I still want to be your wife and play with you at night. You still have a lot of wedding ships and a lot of rings that haven't been issued yet. Go down. Hearing this, Sugu felt a little ashamed. Then Lexington said, But what can I do? Who told me to like you? Sugu was not moved yet, and Saratoga, who was about to find his sister, shouted beside him, How disgusting, sister, how did you become like this? It took a long time to become an admiral because everyone was around and I didn't do much. However, something happened during this period that finally allowed Sugu to fulfill his responsibilities as admiral. The garrison occasionally has sorties, because the enemies are all destroyers, so most of the time the sorties are left to York City. In this attack, York City took Sullivan with them. In addition to the attack, their original intention was to take Sullivan to see the peach blossoms in spring. It's just that they attacked for a while and still didn't come back until the sun had set, and in the end only Sullivan came back. With an uneasy feeling in his heart, Consultant Sue asked, Sullivan, what's wrong? Where is York City? Those people, Sullivan gasped, trying to say something but couldn't express it at the moment. She is considered a very well-behaved child in the destroyer, and she studies very hard, but her ability to describe is not very good. At this time, she tilted her head and thought for a long time, and said, Those people kept Sister York City, no come back and ask Sister York City to compensate. Lose money? What kind of mess, York City broke other people's things. Later, after Sullivan's words, Sugu understood what happened. What exactly happened? After receiving news from the garrison that a deep-sea ship girl appeared on the sea, York City was assigned to take Sullivan to attack. Although the attack speed is very fast, no matter how fast the ship girl is, she is always on the passive side. Later, when York City passed by and then experienced a battle to eliminate the deep-sea destroyer, some parts of the village had already been shelled. The village was attacked by the deep-sea ship girls, and there was nothing that could be done about it. Generally speaking, as long as the deep-sea ship girl is eliminated, the mission of the attack is completed. However, when the enemy was eliminated, York City took Sullivan into the village. On one side, he wanted to see the peach blossoms blooming in spring. On the other side, he eliminated the deep-sea ship girl and wanted to enjoy the treatment of a hero like a slut. But in the end, instead of being treated like a hero, he was scolded. Finally, he was stopped by a villager whose house was shelled, and he insisted on compensation from York City. But the damage caused by the deep-sea ship girl was not reasonable for a ship girl to compensate, but the villager was obviously a swindler, and Sullivan finally ran back quietly. At this time, Sugu needs to take action. Although he always laughs at York City, he would be an asshole to ignore it at this time. When Sugu went over not long after, he saw York City sitting on one side, surrounded by a circle of people, big and small, men and women, old and young, all there. York City was there shouting, "What does it have to do with me? I'm striking out fast. If you had been faster, my house wouldn't have been attacked." The villager who spoke at this time had a weather-beaten face and a body that was not strong but had strong muscles due to frequent battles with the sea wind and waves. Now he stood by and blocked York City, preventing anyone from leaving. "Your house was attacked by the deep-sea ship girl, and I wasn't the one who damaged it. You were stolen by a thief. Do you still want the police to compensate you? But you sank the deep-sea ship girl, and you eliminated the deep-sea ship girl. I'll give you a reward. Of course you have to lose money if you get the reward." York City was furious. "Get out of the way, or I'll hit someone." "You fight, folks, take a look, the ship girl is going to hit someone. After all, she would not attack ordinary people," and York City almost cried in anger. Seeing this situation, Sugu shouted York City, and then almost shed tears when he saw York City. At this time, Sugu revealed that he was the admiral, and then found that he was immediately surrounded by people. The villager who originally shouted to York City for money also turned to his side. "Since you are the admiral, you have to pay for it. Your ship girl was too slow to arrive, so my house was blown up. Okay, I'll compensate you." The villager was a little stunned, and so was York City. Then Sugu continued, "Can I buy you a lollipop for $1? Sugu continued to speak loudly, "Why are you like a child, childish and a scoundrel?" At this time, Sugu had no fear. The strong man was cowardly and swung his sword at the stronger one. The weak man was cowardly, but swung his sword at the weaker one. Well, he is not a fearless strong man, mainly because the ship girl is by his side. Sugu said to the other party, "You don't dare to vent your anger towards those deep-sea ship girls, don't dare to fight with them, but instead turn your hatred towards those who help you. Is it because you know that the ship girls don't dare to hit you?" The villager continued, "You are so slow, why are you so slow?" He kept saying it over and over again. Sugu said, "Why are you so slow? Why are you so slow? Who knew you have a deep-sea ship girl here? We can't guard here. You are a policeman in a village. My house cost a lot of money to build, but you guys are so slow. We can obviously go faster, just go faster." After the villager finished speaking, a villager next to him said, "His house was blown up by the deep-sea ship girl. It was really tragic. You are so powerful, but he is just a poor person." Sugu yelled, "You prayed to the gods and burned incense, and you also asked for apples, roasted chickens, and pig heads. Why do you ask us to help you? Did you give us anything in advance? We ate your rice, or are you paying taxes to us? As an admiral, your mission is to eliminate the deep-sea ship girls, not to guard your doorstep." Yes, the house collapsed. I'm very aggrieved and hurt. But have you thought clearly about who caused this situation? It's those monsters, those deep-sea ship girls, not the people who came to help you. You are aggrieved. It's none of my business if you don't feel wronged. I came to help you with good intentions but only received criticism. Or do you think, I am so miserable, what does it matter to you to receive a little criticism? What does it mean to pay for it? But why do you want everyone to come and treat you when you are wronged? Who do you think you are? The sun wants to revolve around you, and everyone wants to revolve around you." The villager said, "Let's sue the military police. For people who live by the sea, they still know a lot about the ship girl." Sugu roared angrily, "Go and sue, sue. What's wrong? Go and petition. All the way to the ship girl's headquarters. Hey. York City, kick him. Although I said this, of course I didn't kick it in the end, I just kicked a big tree next to it and broke it. Then Sugu took York City and left forcefully. At this time, no one dared to stop him. He gave everyone the middle finger as he left. He doesn't care how pitiful outsiders are. As an admiral, the first thing he has to do is to protect his ship's wife. This is what he learned when he was in the academy. I never expect everyone to be a good person. On the contrary, ship girls are basically innocent and kind-hearted girls. It is difficult for a ship girl to be alone, so admirals are often needed. When someone criticizes her, the admiral will stand up and shield the ship girl from the wind and rain. Soon I returned to the town hall and told the story. Zeppelin said, "So, this is the responsibility of being an admiral. A ship girl cannot attack ordinary people casually. When a ship girl is wronged, at least her admiral must protect her. The purpose of establishing our academy is to tell everyone it is up to the admiral to do what he has to do, and being an admiral does not just mean being full of passion." Sugu said, "I don't know how others deal with these situations. Anyway, these things are the most troublesome. When I chose the townhouse before, I didn't want to choose the kind where the nearby villagers were rogue. I didn't expect that there would be some here. There are all kinds of people, don't say that, there are still many good people. I know, but it's this kind of people that are the most annoying. One rat droppings ruins the whole pot of porridge." No matter what, he finally performed well as an admiral. But compared with these, the follow-up also brought some impacts. When I saw York City at night, it seemed that York City respected itself a lot. On the other hand, after Sullivan's promotion, Sugu seems to be very popular among the destroyers, although he has always been very popular. A few days passed as the messy things were dealt with. I visited a garrison in the morning to find out if anyone knew about some stray ship girls, but I didn't get any useful information. When I came back in the evening, while eating in the cafeteria, I talked about Eugene. That was the admiral I met before. The other party had mentioned before that if he got the garrison, he would contact her and we could form a joint formation through negotiation. Although Sugu doesn't need a joint formation, the only thing that limits him now is resources. But that handsome female admiral still has a deep impression on me to this day. She told me a lot about the admiral and the governor's house, so that I wouldn't be blinded, and she was of great help. After chatting casually, we finally decided to visit Eugene. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 218. Getting to Eugene's garrison is also via yacht, but now there is no need for San Juan or counterattack to be the driver, because Sugu has learned how to operate the yacht very well during this period. It took a lot of time to set off from his garrison on the yacht and find the port city. I had a good idea when I went there. What should I talk about? Or is there some kind of offensive and defensive alliance? All in all, if it was a negotiation, Sugu would not want to give in too much, even if it meant helping his senior. This time when I went out, I took the small house with me as usual. I originally wanted to forget it like this, but everyone insisted that Sugu bring someone else with him. In the end, everyone still felt that Xiaozai was a bit unreliable. This time Sugu was followed by Bismarck. After all, it was rare for Bismarck to put forward his own opinions, so of course Sugu agreed. Compared to the admirals Tianhao and Eugene in the garrison next to us, she has much better luck. When she became the admiral, she was immediately assigned to this port city. Counting now, the wedding ship is the destroyer Bai Shui. Secretary the ship is the battleship Mutsu, and there are other ship girls. Speaking of which, Mutsu had a practice session with Kotaku before, but was sunk by Kotaku with one shot. The main purpose of coming here this time is, firstly, to thank others, and secondly, to come up with ideas for a joint attack. Of course, For a joint attack, the most important thing is for her to provide resources. After all, we are so strong. Isn't this a bit deceptive? Eugene's town hall is not located in the county town, but since it is a town hall, it will definitely be close to the river or the sea. Sugu then asked for directions at the dock and easily found Eugene's garrison. Stopped the yacht at the other party's dock and stood at the dock for a while. Not long after, Sugu saw Bai Suihao, Eugene's young wife whom he had met before, walking out. Sugu then expressed his intention to come, but the news he received was that Eugene had gone to a meeting. Where to go for a meeting? What's going on at the meeting? Sugu saw Bai Shui's embarrassed expression and thought it might not be a good meeting, so he didn't ask. Then he asked when he would come back. Although Bai Shui invited herself to sit in the governor's mansion, she refused. Anyway, I have a boat now, so I can go shopping around. I can just come back later. Not long after, he sailed back to the port city from Eugene's garrison. Although I have been to this county once before, I was just in a hurry and had no chance to wander around. Then walked outside on the street. Xiaozai, don't pick other people's flowers randomly. It's spring now and everything is growing. On the street, some people plant flowers in their homes, which are yellow or purple morning glory. Sugu remembered that he had picked them a lot when he was young, but now he knew not to touch other people's affairs casually, so he reminded Xiaozai. The hand that Xiaozai just stretched out suddenly stopped and responded, "Oh." In response, Xiaozai started kicking the stones on the road again. "Don't kick rocks on the side of the road." Xiaozai turned around and said, "Mother-in-law." When Sugu heard what Xiaozai said, he felt helpless. He was usually too doting, so his words were ineffective. He remembered that when they first met, he always said what he said. However, another voice appeared at this time, "Okay, Xiaozai is obedient." "Okay, Sister Miao." Following Sugu on the street, Bismarck said this and then shut up. He never spoke. Sugu looked at Bismarck and opened his mouth to say something, but suddenly realized that he didn't know what to say. "It doesn't matter who she is, Saratoga is easy to handle. Anyway, whatever my sister-in-law says is fine. Bizai is also easy to deal with, just tell me something about the book." Although Sugu didn't dare to say that he was as well read as Bizai, he had seen the world and had seen some things like C-89 and C-90. "I don't dare to say that I am an old driver, an old imam, or a conductor, but there are a lot of taxi drivers, and I can probably count myself as an old passenger." Unlike the above people, Bismarck always liked to be businesslike. But it was not good to be silent all the way. Sugu said. Bismarck has been speechless. Is he thinking about something? Not thinking about anything. Eugene said he was going to a meeting. What kind of meeting do you think it should be? Have no idea. In the past, a lot of steel was scooped up. If it hadn't been stopped, I would have been able to build the ship girl. Unfortunately, it took a long time to build the ship girl, and it would definitely be discovered. I think of the scene I saw at that time. Historically, if a ship girl was ever built, it would probably be Quincy. Quincy is a fool, Ovo. Yeah. Sugu looked at Bismarck and thought, to be honest, talking to you is so difficult. Do you think it's possible that Eugene isn't in a meeting at all? Seeing how embarrassed Bai Shui is when he hesitates to speak, he might be bailing out a boat. You can't let others know about fishing out a boat. What if someone else snatches it away? Fishing the ship is actually the process of getting to know the admiral and the ship girl. Although it is said to be fishing, it is actually like making friends. After getting to know people, the relationship will gradually improve. Later, the admiral said, "Why not go to my garrison?" The ship girl agreed, which meant that the boat was successfully salvaged. There is no need for a contract, no contract, as long as you make a promise, the ship girl will always stay by your side. This is the life of a ship girl. Will not. Sugu said, speaking of which, there is an admiral who wants to get you, right? I remember you mentioned it a few times. Yes, yes. Who is it? What impressed me the most is. Bismarck said this, as if he was narrating, without any emotion here, and this was how business was done. Then Sugu nodded and asked, when you left, why didn't the destroyers follow you? The little girl should have followed the adults. In fact, all the children of the Z series have grown up. It doesn't matter whether I'm here or not. I can't take good care of them. When I left, I called them, but they have to stay in the guardhouse. Later, I took Bazai and the others away, and I don't know what happened next. Do you think it's possible that everyone could be picked up by someone else? After all, I've been missing for such a long time. No, this sentence was particularly firm. While talking about shopping, shopping in Bismarck is a completely different feeling than Lexington or Saratoga. Bismarck didn't like shopping and was not interested in anything. He didn't buy a single piece of clothing or jewelry after shopping for so long. Then we sat on a bench by the sea, where we could hear the sound of the waves. Sitting on the bench, Xiao Zai rubbed his eyes. He set off very early when he came here today. After all, it took a while to come here, so he was probably a little tired. Sugu let Xiao Zai sleep on his lap and said, is there anything Bismarck wants to do? No. What do you think of the Bazai painting book? Is she still painting now? I remember burning them all, or was she hiding in the Admiral's room and painting? Indeed, there were 2 times when she hid in her room to draw, and kept saying that she would be bribed, and that it didn't matter how she touched her. This was the first time I saw such an unscrupulous person. Sugu looked at the sky and said, I'm just asking casually. Lie. While talking like this, someone came over to sell shells. Want a shell? Don't want. It's a very beautiful shell. Keep it as a souvenir. Don't be so reluctant to part with it. You have to be willing to spend money when taking your wife and children out to play. Okay, just one. Then the man walked away, and Sugu played with the shells and said, this kind of shells, for those from outside, speaking of. After sitting on the roadside for a long time, Xiaozai woke up. In fact, she had not slept for long. Admiral, Sister Meow, I'll go over there and play for a while. Xiaozai couldn't sit still at all. Then he saw the beach by the sea and wanted to go there and play. Go, go, Sugu said. After all, no one can do anything to Xiaozai as a ship girl. I remember seeing a case in the past. It was said that someone wanted to do something obscene because the destroyer was easy to deal with. Later, he was kicked by the destroyer and his leg was broken. Later, the man refused to accept the decision and complained to the military police. He was then locked up for many days. When I heard about that case, I remember telling my classmates that I couldn't bear to part with a lollipop, I couldn't bear to show others a goldfish, and I couldn't even be a gangster. Then Sugu looked at the small house running away and said, the small house looks like a destroyer. Bismarck said nothing. Sugu smiled and said, the destroyer is really great. Sugu knocked on the armrest of the bench, start in 3 years, and the maximum penalty is death. Then he narrowed his eyes and said, 3 years of blood gain, the death penalty is not a loss. Bismarck finally couldn't bear it anymore, and she said, it's obscene. There is no joke at all, it is too old-fashioned, Bismarck. Bismarck said, anyone who attacks a destroyer is a pervert. Just saying. Who on earth insists that Xiaozai sleeps on his lap? Kotaku is a battleship, not a destroyer. You don't want to give me a ring. Sugu was shocked. Bismarck, you actually have such an idea? Sugu said, Xiaozai is just a little girl. A ring is just a form of emotion, it doesn't mean you can do anything. I've seen through you, Bismarck. After saying something like this, Sugu said, we'll go there again at noon. If Eugene hasn't come back yet, let's go home. Then Sugu saw Xiaozai squatting on the beach in the distance and said, look, what has Xiaozai been doing there? I'll go over and take a look. Sugu walked to the beach and immediately saw Xiaozai squatting on the ground. She was looking at something, and her hand was still drawing circles in the air, as if she was teasing some small animal. Sugu walked over and called, Xiaozai, what are you looking at? Xiaozai turned around and found that his admiral had returned. Then he stretched out his hands forward and picked up something on the ground. Only then did Sugu see Xiaozai's hand, which was a small white dog with beautiful blue eyes. Xiaozai put his arms through the puppy's forelimbs, held the puppy against his chest, and held the puppy's butt or back with his other hand. At this time, a crisp sound came from the puppy. I found a puppy, can I keep it? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 219. At this time, the person being held by Xiaozai was a dog, a cute little white dog. At first glance, it looks very much like a Shiba Inu, but at a second glance, it seems to be just an ordinary little native dog. This is not to belittle local dogs. As for young local dogs, they were super cute when they were young. It's just that they have the wrong talent and their appearance is completely gone when they grow up. But compared to these, Sugu had no idea where Xiaozai got the dog from. Although the ship girl would not get rabies even if she was bitten by a dog, the most difficult thing to do was not knowing where the little white dog came from. Of course you can keep a dog, but you can't just pick up a dog on the roadside and say you want to keep it. This is considered stealing. At this time, Sugu watched Xiaozai holding the puppy in his arms, and then nuzzled the puppy's head with his face, and the puppy also stuck out its tongue to lick Xiaozai's face. Although both parties seemed to be very close, it still didn't work, so Sugu said kindly to Xiaozai, if you want to raise a dog, we can go to the market or pet store to buy it, but this time not even one. Xiaozai raised his head and said, but I think this puppy is very cute and very obedient. I just want to keep it. How can you be obedient? Why don't you force me to hug someone? He's just very well behaved. Xiaozai looked like he was definitely not lying. Saying this, Xiaozai put the puppy on the ground. Then she squatted next to the puppy, clapped her hands, and said, twirl in circles. Then the puppy actually started spinning in circles under Xiaozai's instructions. Sugu was stunned at this moment. Shake hands. Xiaozai stretched out his hand, and the puppy also stretched out its forelimbs to rest on Xiaozai's palm, looking very well behaved. Admiral, it doesn't matter if I pull its tail. Sugu was stunned, such a well-behaved puppy, you just said you wanted to raise someone, and now you actually want to pull someone's tail. No matter what, it's better not to pull the dog's tail. Moreover, I have seen through you. You just regard the puppy as a toy. You don't want to keep it at all and you have no sense of responsibility at all. All in all, Sugu stopped Xiaozai from trying to pull the dog's tail, thinking to himself, Xiaozai is a naughty kid. Then Xiaozai said to the puppy, then jump. Then in Sugu's eyes, the white puppy jumped up. Xiaozai definitely doesn't recognize this puppy, Sugu can confirm this. But if you don't know, is this little white dog so good? This time it was Sugu's turn to say, scream. Ouch. It didn't sound like a puppy's bark, but he didn't pay attention to it. Sugu said again, shake hands. Then squat down. Stand up, on your 2 feet. Well, this request is a bit difficult. After thinking about it, Sugu reached out and touched the puppy's head. At this time, the puppy didn't respond. Instead, it showed a comfortable expression and squinted its eyes as if it was comfortable. Now Sugu wants to raise a puppy. While smoothing the puppy's coat, he said, "It's really interesting. Then can we raise it? Although it's very cute, it's someone else's dog, otherwise, let's wait here and see if an owner comes over. If possible, if it's not expensive, buy it." Xiaozai nodded and squatted beside him and said, "Then let me play now." Wait a moment, how could such an obedient and cute puppy just let go? Xiaozai took a look and saw that his admiral had no intention of letting go. Then he stood up and said, "Then you go ahead and play. I'll pick up another one." Sugu was a little stunned, but saw that Xiaozai had already walked away. How could he pick up such a puppy? Where could he pick it up? Sugu stood up and wanted to take a look in the direction Xiaozai left. Then he immediately saw Xiaozai walking far away, squatting on the ground, picking up something else, and then walked back. Xiaozai walked closer and closer. She was holding a puppy in one hand, which was similar to the puppy in her own hand. As he actually picked it up, Sugu felt that his worldview had been shattered. Consultant Su asked, "Where did you pick it up?" "Right on the beach." "Where's the big dog?" "No big dogs." There were 3 puppies, but there was neither the big dog nor the owner. They turned around and looked around. There were no residential buildings. Where did the dogs come from? What is Sugu still thinking about? Suddenly I heard Xiaozai's voice. "I buried them." "What to bury?" He teased the puppy on his hand and then turned his head. Sugu saw Xiaozai patting her palms and shaking off the sand. At this moment, she looked at the puppy that she had buried with only one head exposed, and she smiled with satisfaction. "Why did you bury them?" "Interesting." At this time, Sugu looked at the puppy buried by the small house. The dog's head was exposed out of the sand with an innocent expression. "Hurry up and dig it out, otherwise it will be bad if the owner sees it." "No. Admiral, let's bury the other one too." Saying this, Xiaozai started to take action again. Then Sugu saw Xiaozai ordering another little white dog on his hands to squat into the sand pit that someone had dug on the beach. Sugu said, "Don't bury it, it will have a bad impact." On the other side, Bismarck saw Sugu going to look for Xiaozai, but he didn't come after waiting for so long. Then she took the coat that Xiaozai took off and walked to the beach, wanting to see what they were doing. Then she saw her admiral and Xiaozai squatting on the beach and playing in the sand. Xiaozai was okay, after all, she was just a little girl, but admiral, is it ridiculous for you, an adult, to play with the sand too? Bismarck stood there and shouted, "Hey, what are you doing there?" Xiaozai replied abruptly, "Bury the dog." "Buying a dog? What kind of dog should I buy here?" Sugu then clarified Bismarck's confusion. He said, "It's just to bury the dog, not to buy it." "But it would be strange to bury a dog." Bismarck walked to the beach and saw 2 people burying the sand. 3 big sandbags, and then 3 innocent dog heads emerged from the sandbags, with their eyes wide open. Bismarck said helplessly, "Why are you joining in the fun, and whose dog is this?" Sugu said, "I don't know, but they are very obedient. They do whatever you tell them to do, whether it's standing up, squatting down, circling in circles, or shaking hands. It's very interesting, and, it doesn't matter, these are just sand, it's okay, we will dig them out when the time comes. Besides, look at those big innocent eyes, they are really interesting." Bismarck wanted to say something more, but suddenly found that these puppies seemed to have some familiar looks, and they were barking at him. "Woohoo! Ouch! What if we put hats, glasses, and swimming rings on these 3 dogs? What should it look like?" Then she said, "This is not a dog, it is definitely a wolf." "A wolf? It doesn't look like that." Bismarck said, "They are wolves. I know why they buried you and stopped barking, and they were so obedient. Their names are Berg, Otto, and Friedrich." Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 220. He dug out 3 wolf cubs with innocent expressions on their faces from the beach. As the wolf cubs shook their bodies, they suddenly turned into their original cute self. Although they don't seem to have a good memory, their ears twitched when they were buried just now, and then they started to lick Xiaoxi's outstretched palm, completely forgetting who they were buried in the sand just now. Xiaoxi teased the 3 wolf cubs and watched them circling around her. She didn't care whether they were puppies or wolf cubs. Anyway, no matter how ferocious the beasts were, she couldn't do anything to them. On the other side, these names felt very familiar, and Sugu frowned. At this time, Bismarck woke him up, and he remembered the portrait of U81 in the game, which seemed to be carrying 3 puppies. Well, little wolf. Anyway, at the beginning, I couldn't tell whether it was a puppy or a wolf cub. U81 is a battleship that is quite difficult to catch in the game, and the ship type is a submarine. Although it is relatively weak among submarines in terms of attributes, there are not many submarines in the game, and submarines are very useful at certain times, so it is not. Do you know how many people are folding on U81? Compared with those powerful battleships, U81 is truly rare, and it is one of the few very useful battleships among the rare ones. For me, I didn't deliberately try to find the boat. I just happened to find it when I was conquering the event map. Originally, I didn't really have much obsession with submarines. Probably because of this, no matter whether it is a gun dive or a submarine, whether it is a big mackerel or an archerfish, there is no duplicate. But compared to these things, gaming is a thing of the past after all, so U81 is of course very important. Sugu said, in other words, these are the 3 wolves of submarine U81. Are they really wolves? Whether they are wolves or not, they are U81's pets. Otherwise, why do you think they would listen to you? Sugu nodded, yes, even if there are 3 little wolves, we are their admiral. Sugu grabbed a little wolf that was circling the small house, held it in his arms, scratched the little wolf's chin, and said, since these 3 little wolves are here, it means that U81 is also here, otherwise there is no reason for 3 little wolves to run out on their own. These 3 little wolves won't be too far away from U81. Sugu looked around and saw that this was a small beach with golden sand. If it is summer, there will be many people coming to play. But it is spring at this time, and although the sunshine is very good, the weather is still slightly cold, at least not suitable for swimming in the season. There was no one seen nearby at this time, let alone a little girl. There's no one in sight. Speaking of which, why can't Xiaoxi recognize them? Without waiting for Bismarck to answer, Sugu said, no wonder, she even recognizes San Juan. Hearing what he said, Xiaoxi immediately slapped him down and said, I'm not the admiral yet, so I don't attack. I left Sister San Juan alone before, and why do I need to recognize a few dogs? A confident voice. Well, blame me. Moreover, U81's pet is a wolf. But if U81 is here, why haven't you seen her? Or is she somewhere? Saying this, Sugu looked around and suddenly thought that these 3 little wolves were very obedient, so they should also be very psychic. Okay, Xiaoxi, don't play anymore, After saying this, Sugu looked at Bismarck again and asked, what are their names? I forgot. Berg, Otto, Friedrich. Sugu clapped his hands to the 3 little wolves, and then said, Berg, Otto, what, well, take us to find your master. Sugu waved his hand, but the 3 little wolves looked at him, their big eyes staring, without any reaction, and they just barked towards the sea. They don't understand, it's still said that U81 is in the sea, but how can we find it in the sea? Bismarck said, there is no way to find her unless there is a destroyer here. Even a destroyer can only find them and cannot talk to them. Since U-81 is in the sea, there is nothing we can do but wait. Standing by the beach and continuing to wait, Sugu said, wait a minute, generally speaking, submarines should follow adults. Who do you think U-81 will follow? Scharnhorst or Blücher? I don't know, but, Admiral, can you name everyone now? Bismarck also heard about Sugu's lack of past memories. 80 to 90% should be no problem. Admiral Hipper, Blücher, Z1, Z24. Sugu was thinking about his ship girl at this time. There were no problems ahead, but there were some problems with a few destroyers. Of course, the vertical drawings of those Z-series destroyers are clear, but at this time, I still don't remember clearly what the specific name is. After all, I am not a fan of the Z-series. Skipping those, Sugu said, by the way, there are U-81, U-47, U-505. At this time, he was a little excited while talking. If he said he was not excited, it would be true or false. After all, compared to the little girl destroyer, the little girl submarine is obviously a better existence. In addition, several submarines should be together, so U-47 and U-505 should also exist. Correspondingly, there are large ships to take care of them, but think about the large German ships. Bizeo and Bismarck have already been found, that is, Scharnhorst, or Admiral Hipper and Blücher. By the way, there is also Z-22. Bismarck said, we don't have a Z-22. Sugu suddenly fell silent. Without Z-22, it must have been dismantled. Bismarck said, and, have you forgotten Emden? Emden, that was a light cruiser. It seemed that he hadn't really remembered it, but he didn't have much impression. Then Sugu said, what kind of character do you think Scharnhorst should be? Bismarck thought for a while and said, it's hard to say, in other words, the Admiral should know better than us. Sugu said, I know your sister better, what kind of character she is, a lazy homebody. They were talking little by little, but after waiting for a long time, they didn't see U-81 coming. Sugu asked again, is he really the little wolf from U-81? Definitely is. Let's sit aside. Sitting on a nearby bench, Xiaozai was still squatting next to him, teasing the three little wolves happily. Sugu said, looking for Yujin is not a big deal at all. If we find U-81 today, it will be a big deal. U-81 is a submarine. I heard about it when I was in the academy. It is very rare. Sugu was talking when a weak voice appeared. Berg, Otto, Friedrich. Don't lift the Berg. He didn't seem to notice the people sitting on the bench at all, and timidly said the words to the little house holding the little wolf burger. These three little wolves are mine. Xiaozai also saw the person who spoke and said, U-81. Oh, it's Xiaozai. He seemed to have seen Xiaozai, but his voice was completely devoid of any excitement. At this time, Bismarck also saw the young girl standing in front of the small house. Then she reached out and lifted the young girl up and said, U-81. Bismarck, sister. Sugu looked over and saw a young girl with wet body and long orange hair. She was wearing a dark blue sweatshirt, a gray hooded windbreaker, and a collar around her neck. Neither the chest nor the thighs look like a young girl. On the contrary, because there is still water on the thighs, it is better to say that there is some lust. Oh, the mouthless U-81.